Hi everybody, it's me Jill and welcome to Jill Informed. This is the recap of The Real Housewives of New Jersey, Season 9, Episode 2, Easter Wives Hunt. This is the first time we get to see the taglines. Margaret says, I can make you laugh or make you cry. Your choice. Melissa, don't try to bully me, 'cause I'm a boss. Are you though? Jackie, one of the new girls, I have 4 kids, 2 degrees, and 1 kick-ass life. Dolores, I may put up a tough front, but I'll never leave you behind. Just the way she said behind. Jennifer, the other new girl, I'm obsessed with family, traditions, and Chanel. And finally, Teresa, these days, I don't throw punches, I roll with them. Oh, I highly doubt Teresa rolls with the punches, but we'll see. Okay, so this is fun because all the outside shots, there's snow. And doing this alongside of OC, where it's always like the ocean and palm trees, this is kind of a fun contrast. I always forget at the start of the season when a franchise films. We're only on episode 2 and they're celebrating Easter, so it's gotta be, they must start in March, I guess. Okay, we open with Margaret and Joe, and they are going to a tattoo parlor because Joe is having the date of their wedding tattooed onto his ring finger because, I don't know, he said his hand was messed up and I guess he can't wear a ring. I don't know. And while they're having that done, they're talking about Marge Sr., who is getting her facelift now. Margaret said, you know, it's going to make me want to do it too. And Joe said, no, you don't need it. You're beautiful. And Margaret goes, I know. Maybe it's because I struggle with self-esteem, but I get such a kick out of people that think so highly of themselves that when somebody tells them they look beautiful, their response is, I know. It's just funny. They also talk a little bit about the fact that she is working on a new line of children's hospital gowns for kids who have terminal illness. She had been thinking about how that's just depressing that the gowns look so clinical, and she came up with this idea that they should look like costumes. And so she's working with somebody to design that. I mean, it might seem like a little maybe stupid thing, but I actually think it could make little kids feel better about being in the hospital if they got to wear cute little gowns that looked like Superman or Wonder Woman or something, you know. I think that's, I don't know, I thought it was a good idea. Next, we are at Melissa's house and she's getting ready because Jackie's coming over with her kids and they're having like a play date with all their children. She starts by saying, Gino, get your foot off the table. And I don't know if he just doesn't do it, and she goes, did you hear me? And he goes, yes, we heard you, Melissa. He's 9. I don't come to the Housewives to listen to smart-ass 9-year-olds. I'm over that. Anyway, Jackie comes over, and as we know, she's got 4 kids. 4 kids and 2 careers and 1 kick-ass life. But what we didn't know was that her 4 kids were 2 sets of twins, 9-year-olds and 7-year-olds. And 3 are boys, this one of the 7-year-olds is a girl. And oh boy, let me just say this, they make Gino look like a perfect gentleman. It's chaos. Melissa and Jackie are sitting on the couch having a glass of wine, and they're just bonding over how out of control their children are. You guys, just wait till you hear this. We get a little bit of Jackie's backstory. Her husband Evan is in finance, and she is a journalist who writes articles about parenting. And then she goes on to say that she gets a lot of feedback from people who tell her, you don't know what you're talking about, you're a terrible parent. And she does not care. No, she's got her own way of doing things, which apparently seems to involve doing nothing and letting them run wild. But I'm trying to reserve judgment, but this whole scene has me on the edge because the kids are right in the background and they're going bananas. I mean, it is mass chaos. Anyway, Jackie says to Melissa, so Teresa is married to your husband. And then they kind of laugh and she goes, I'm married to her brother. And you know what I'm thinking. You were kind of right the first time. I mean, do we really know what's going on with that whole flowers in the attic situation that the Gorga siblings have? Anyway, so this actually looks like the scene that we saw last week at the very opening of the season. But then it said 3 months earlier, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but the timeline seems a little weird to me. Next we see Teresa and her father and Gia, and they're in the car, Gia's driving, and they're going to get mani-pedis. Teresa and Gia are getting manicures, and Nono's getting a pedicure. Gia and Teresa are talking about how Nono has been complaining that Joe doesn't come and visit him enough. Teresa said Joe keeps complaining that he's working so much. Gia said, yeah, that excuse is getting pretty old. I mean, we live in the same town. And Teresa goes, yeah, that's true. He could stop by and just like have a drink with him on his way home from work. Then we see Dolores and Frank, and they are tile shopping for the house flip that they're gonna do. And that conversation gets around to Dolores telling Frank that she invited Margaret to the hatchet throwing party. And Frank said, well, that's nice. And Dolores is like, yeah, I don't know. And he goes, why? What? I have some reservations. I don't understand why she has such a soft spot for Danielle. Frank said, well, you know what? She'll find out. It's only a matter of time before Danielle turns on Margaret. I don't know if Frank has become a cup reader or not, but in the very next scene, we have Margaret going over to Danielle's house. And Danielle says to her, Dolores and I will never be friends. Not everybody has to like everybody else. And I think I'm just going to be civil. We'll keep our distance so that we don't make it uncomfortable for our mutual friends. And Margaret says, yeah, I think you're right about that. Not everybody has to be friends. Now, don't freak out, but she is having a hatchet throwing party. And Danielle goes, why would that freak me out? And she said, well, because she invited me and the other girls to go. And Danielle goes, when did you two become such buddies? How is her first question not, wait, a hatchet throwing party? What the hell is that? But no, either she knew what it was or she didn't care. The thing she cared about was that Margaret was going. So Margaret said, well, we're trying to patch things up. And Danielle goes, don't you think that's a little strange that she's inviting my very good friend? Margaret barely gets to say anything before this evolves into classic Danielle. You see this transition. She just goes crazy. She said, well, it really bothers me that you're going to go. You don't have my back. And it just escalates and escalates without Margaret almost saying anything into, what do you two even have in common? The fact that you cheated on your husband and she was cheated on by her husband. Margaret says, okay, so, why do you do that? Why do you hit below the belt? And she said, because my feelings were hurt and that's what I do. I mean, at least she was kind of honest about that, but it didn't matter because she started crying then, and Margaret was trying to talk to her, and she wasn't going to hear it. She had to leave the room, and Margaret had to see herself out. Next, we are at Stumpy's Hatchet House. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, it's called Stumpy's. Everybody is there except for Teresa, who is at one of the kids' like a dance recital. Dolores decides that they should throw their axes in like a cathartic way to release something that they want to get out of their lives. So she says that the kids are both in college and Frank is in Florida all the time and she's lonely. So I'm thinking, what are you trying to get rid of with the axe? But before she throws it, she says, this is for everything that's ever held me back in life. Like what? Frank and the kids? I don't know. I didn't understand that, but whatever. So she throws the axe and it actually sticks. Because prior to this, they had been throwing it and it's just bouncing off the wall. Next, it's Jennifer's turn, and Jennifer says that her weight has fluctuated a lot. Now we get Jennifer's backstory. We knew some of it from Melissa's birthday party. She's Turkish, her family is traditional, her mom wanted her to be in an arranged marriage, and then she found her husband. He's a plastic surgeon, we know that. There's this scene where she's talking to her mom and they're in like a boutique and there's like a rack of clothes behind her. All I can say is, thank you, Giovanni. It's all Giovanni tags. Seriously, does Giovanni have some dirt on Andy Cohen? They are getting a lot of free publicity. Anyway, we see Jennifer's house, and it's ginormous. There's 9 bedrooms and 16 bathrooms. There's a theater, there's a gym, there's like a spa room with a sauna, and there's a basketball court. And she's got 5 kids. They're ages 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. So anyway, she mentions that she's got 5 kids and, time to lose the weight and stuff. And Melissa's pretty rough on her. Melissa's like, oh, come on. No excuses. You've got a nanny. So she goes to throw her axe. And then Dolores said, oh, let me take a picture of you. And Margaret said, oh, Dolores, I was hoping we wouldn't put any pictures on social media. Which, were any of you guys at home thinking, this is what Luann should have said to Ramona? Hey guys, nothing for social media because I just got out of jail. But anyway, Margaret says it, and then she goes on to tell her that she doesn't want to hurt Danielle's feelings, and then the whole story about how Danielle was mad at her for even being there, and then the mean comment that Danielle made, which, that was for sympathy. Margaret didn't have to tell him that part, but of course, it got Dolores all riled up. Oh, she should never have said that to you. And, to the confession cam, Dolores is like, didn't surprise me. All right, it looks like the first ladies' trip is going to be to Oklahoma because that's where Margaret has to go for that meeting about the hospital gowns for the children, and everybody's excited. Oh, at the very end of that scene, when it's Jackie's turn, she throws it and she gets a bullseye. We never heard what her reason for throwing it was, but gotta think it was the kids. Next, we are at Jennifer's beautiful home, and this scene is where we find out the high price she has to pay for that beautiful home. Her husband, Bill. Yeah, this guy appears to be a raging misogynist. Jennifer is chalking it up to culture, and she says he's very traditional. She says he wants me to stay home with the kids all the time. Yeah, whatever. So she tells him that she got invited to Oklahoma for the weekend. It isn't so much what he says as the way he says it. When he talks to her, his words are very measured and careful, like he's trying to explain something to either a child or somebody who is beneath him. He's very calm, but he said, I hope you told her no. And she said, I didn't. I said yes. He goes, without discussing? Like he gets this creepy smile that doesn't reach his eyes, She said yes, and he said, the whole weekend? And she said, yeah. And then he goes, well, now I'll have to get home earlier to accommodate the kids into my schedule. Okay. Okay, because you're new to the Housewives, let me just give you some unsolicited advice. You're coming off like a controlling psychopath. That smile said to me, just wait until the cameras aren't here. It's not going to be good for you. Now, I don't really think he's going to hurt her. Also, on the plus side, I will say this. The kids are very well behaved because she's got 5 kids and they're in the background of this conversation and you can't hear them. When they were talking before and he said the whole weekend and all that, one of the boys walked by and he put his arm around his dad's neck. Now, kids don't do that when they're fearful. So I'm going to assume that he's a good dad and he really is a good husband. But dude, you sound scary as hell. You're going to have to work on that. Also, she clearly isn't afraid of him because she did it without telling him. She said to the confession cam, well, if he doesn't like it, too bad. So she's not afraid of him. I don't know. She did end up saying, thank you for letting me go. which letting me, I had a little bit of a problem with. And then because I like to contradict myself all the time, let me just say this. It actually wasn't very polite of her to say yes without checking his schedule. The guy's a plastic surgeon. He might have some things going on, whether he's busy or not. I just believe that it's courteous to talk to your spouse when you're going on a trip for 3 days. She didn't exactly do it the right way, but that doesn't mean Bill's not scary. Yes. Next, Teresa is at the gym. She's there for like a maintenance check to see how she's doing before this bikini fitness competition. Now there are two coaches there, and the one with the dark hair, cannot remember her name, but she is a ball buster, man. Teresa looks great, and she has been not drinking and eating, and she goes, how do I look smaller? And she goes, go change into your suit and we'll find out. So she puts on her little bathing suit, comes back out, looks fan-freaking-tastic, by the way. And this woman just ripped into her. Okay, you need to work here and here, basically all over. It all needs to be more toned. I mean, she's just criticizing every single thing. And even the other one looks scared. She finally goes, all right, in 3.5 weeks, I want you down 4 pounds. If you do that, I'll know you're serious about this. You do it my way or I'm out. Capiche? And Teresa goes, capiche. So yeah, those bikini fitness competitions are a lot of work. Next, it is Easter Sunday. Teresa's getting the house all ready. Joe and Melissa and the kids arrive, and apparently No-No has been drinking a lot because he kind of rips into Joe. You haven't seen me in 2 weeks. And Joe's like, what? What's going on? Yes. And Melissa goes, we just saw you. And he said, no. And she goes, yeah, you were just at our house. And he goes, 2 weeks, 2. You too. Shame. Shame. Oh, man. He's not happy. And he's drunk. Now they sit down to eat. There's huge bowls of pasta being passed around, and poor Teresa's got her tiny plate of fish and asparagus, probably with no seasoning whatsoever. Something happens, and then Teresa goes, yeah, I mean, he really misses you, so are you gonna see your father more? And Joe just looks at her, and it turns into this awkward thing. Thankfully, one of the boys suggests that they hide the eggs so that the kids can find them. And they get up to go hide the eggs. Privately then, Joe says to Teresa, why do you do that in front of Dad? Why do you bring that stuff up? You know I'm working and I can't see him. And she goes, because he brings it up all the time to me. He's like, look, it's not like I'm sitting in a bar all day. I'm working my ass off, 15-hour days. I mean, it's cats in the cradle stuff here. So I don't know whose side I'm on. I do feel like Joe probably should try to at least call him regularly. Maybe on his way home from work, he could call his dad, check in with him, tell him he's thinking about him, something like that. Because I do understand if he's working 15 hours a day and he's got 4 kids or 3 kids, I don't know how many kids he has. It seems like he's got 12. So I see his side of it too. And No-No's got to be more understanding too. So anyway, that's where this episode ends. Next week, we are going to be in Oklahoma, where it seems like these ladies are seeing cows for the first time ever. Okay, it is time for viewer questions. And the first one comes to us from Kendra Manley. Hi, Kendra. And she says, the Jersey housewives make me feel like I need to take a shower afterwards. The family connection is so awkward, and their money and abuse of it makes me sick. These people have too much money, gets them in trouble. Yeah, I get what you mean. I actually felt like it was a refreshing change that one of the new housewives, that her husband was a plastic surgeon, because I don't know, this with Juicy Joe and Joe Gorga, the construction stuff and things being shady. Also, the whole family dynamic. When Jersey started, I really didn't know if I was going to stick with it because it was so much family. It was Dina and Caroline Manzo, their sister-in-law, Jackie Loretta. It was so much family. And now we've got Teresa and her sister-in-law. You know, with the other Housewives franchises, we don't have siblings or in-laws or anything. It's just, they're just friends. And I think they should probably stick with that. And I also know what you mean about the money and the abuse and being above the law or thinking they're above the law. That stuff bothers me too. Anyway, thanks for your comment. And if you really don't want to watch and you just want to be caught up a little bit, you can always watch my recaps. This one is from Rita with Limes. Hi, Rita. And she says, I really liked Siggy season 1, but the minute she walked in yelling hello into the restaurant in season 2, that was a wrap on that. Hello, hello, hello. Like she owned the place. It was crazy. Diners were looking at her. You're right. It was so obnoxious. And then she says, Dolores so far is better without Siggy. I agree. I think Dolores is going to do quite well out from, under the coattails of Siggy, So far, look, she's developing a friendship with Margaret already. So, we'll see. She's throwing hatchets. And as much as I'm making fun of that, you know that when I saw the place, I totally wanted to try it. It looked fun. All right. Thank you, Rita. As always, I love when you guys leave your comments and questions. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. All right, I hope to see you guys next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Time for the next recap of The Real Housewives of New Jersey. Bye-bye.